Hello and welcome back to Slorg Pinions. Today we're talking about teamwork in video games, specifically multiplayer games, games where you don't necessarily have to work as a team, but where games are kind of designed around the idea that you should work as a team. I'm going to use this talk about this through the lens of Squad, specifically the infantry combat overhaul and how the game has developed over the last year, because that's the game I know better than most other games. But I think this is applicable to games like the finals, even games like League of Legends to an extent, I think. I was spurred on to make this video because I was actually having a conversation with one of the Squad devs over Discord, and I was having this conversation at about midnight, so my brain wasn't really working, and he was asking me very interesting questions about game design and how Squad currently plays, and I was giving him very poorly thought out answers because I was trying to go to bed. But he asked me this question, and I've also had this question in some of the comments in some Squad videos I've made. If you've only found this channel without finding my main channel, you should know I have a main channel. It's just called Slorgs, and on there I've played a lot of Squad, among other things. So if some of this context makes no sense, you should probably go check out my main channel because there's some fun stuff over there. Anyway, he asked me this question. He said, when ICO dropped, you seemed to really like it and its effect on the gameplay. But after 6+ months of playing it, it seems to me that you have grown some grudges about it. Like you changed your mind about the weapon sway. At first you seemed to like it, like how it affects the overall gameplay flow, but now you seem to be more and more annoyed by it. Any thoughts on why this could be the case? And this spurred a rather long conversation that really got me thinking. It's true that when I was first playing the infantry combat overhaul, which was the complete infantry combat change to Squad, when Squad went from a more arcadey shooter into a very team-oriented, much more severely punishing infantry combat system that a lot of people have called unrealistic, which is true. They weren't trying to make it realistic. They were trying to make a combat system that created the same kind of effect as a game called Project Reality, which is a game I used to play quite frequently before I was playing Squad. And it was actually the infantry combat overhaul that brought me into Squad. Before that, I basically never touched Squad. I really didn't like it much at all. So we're talking the ICO. I just tried to do a brief overview there. If you want to know what the ICO is, I've also made a bunch of videos on that on my main channel. You can go see the development. But essentially, when the ICO came out, right, it was in the form of playtests. They had a series of playtests where they tweaked the ICO with each one to try and dial in what the community felt was the perfect infantry combat overhaul settings. And I was a part of that. I went to every single playtest they hosted. I played every single version of the build before it went live. And I made videos on, I think, every single playtest that was ever hosted for the kind of beta build of the ICO. And when I played those builds, I really enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed the Squad ICO. Really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because, yeah, it made the gameplay... It did everything that it set out to do. It made the gameplay slower. It made things more tactical. It allowed a lot more room for teamwork because gameplay was slower. The game mechanics were all geared towards you as the character, not being like the super soldier main character. You were just like a grunt in the machine. You were just one soldier within the larger force, and you had a certain role to play, but you were not the master chief. You know, you couldn't just go and fight the enemy team by yourself. You'd be heavily punished for that, with game mechanics that included increased suppression, a stamina system, a very punishing stamina system, barrel misalignment features which weren't previously in the game, and also the way pip scopes interacted with the game environment. A lot of stuff that made the game much harder to play solo, and I really liked that. And coming from Project Reality, which has a kind of similar style, I was a huge fan. There's a bunch of controversy about the ICO. A lot of people left the game. A lot of people hate it still to this day, for the same reasons they hated it day one. Regardless, I thoroughly enjoyed it during the testing phase. But then once the game came out, and once I played the game for, a few months, it started to grind on me. I started to not like it as much as I used to. They did backpedal on a few parts of the more severe ICO elements, which I was not a fan of. But even so, even if they hadn't have done that, I still think that my love for that particular build of the game, this particular style, would have waned. And I think people have often been confused on my previous channel as to why that is, because the mechanics are still essentially the same. So why is it? Why? Is it that anything? Is it to do with teamwork? Is it to do with changes in how you play the game? Well, of course it is. But I think the core issue is that with the ICO, during the testing phase of the game, the ICO was being played only by die-hard squad players who have all showed up to this pre-organized event to play the infantry combat overhaul. So everyone there was there to play the game as it was intended and to experience the mechanics they built into this update as they were intended, right? Where you're working as a team, where all squads are closely working together, where you have dedicated squad leaders that know what they're doing, where everyone on the map knows what they're doing, because like 90% of the people there were die-hard squad players who were also fans of the ICO. If you hated the ICO, you were not coming back every single week to play the playtests. Like, you just weren't, And if you didn't enjoy it if you did show up to a playtest, you're not going to show up to the next one. So it's only people who enjoyed it and wanted to play that style that were showing up to those playtests. And then what happened is that I thoroughly promoted that, and I really enjoyed that style, and I told everyone how great it was, because it was great. The problem was, and this was my big mistake, was I had not played squad really to any significant length of time before the ICO. I'd only played squad in the ICO. So I'd only played squad in this playtest setting with all these players who were really committed to the game. I hadn't played with actual squad players. So what happened was that the ICO was released to a wider audience as a vanilla build to everyone who plays squad. And what happened was that the people who played squad regularly were by and large not the people who played in these playtests. You had a lot more just within pub matches, within just random servers, and I always prefer to experience a game as kind of a new player would experience it, where I don't get like 20 people who I know together and make some kind of super team and play the game that way. I like to experience games where I show up and I can just join a random squad and see how the game plays, because that's how most people are going to play these games. And when you played squad like that on the ICO build, it was hell. It was hell. It's so hard to play the game when you're playing squad now, vanilla squad. It's so hard to play the game. The chances of getting a good game are so rare because you have to rely on so many things going right, because the game is so heavily dependent on team play, and the vast majority of people playing the game do not want to work together. They don't want to work together. They just don't want to embrace these mechanics that the developers have put into the game that require teamwork and communication to make work, right? And it worked really well when you had everyone involved wanting to use those mechanics, but it works really badly when no one wants to use those mechanics. And this is a problem. It's a problem for the game because I don't think those mechanics are going away. And it's a problem, I think, for games that require teamwork in general, because there's this sense that if the game requires teamwork and you, in order to enjoy the game, require the presence of other players helping you and working together to make the game better for everyone at the expense of the solo experience, you have to sacrifice something of your solo experience for the benefit of the wider gameplay experience for everyone. Games tend to not work particularly well when that happens. But I don't think it's a problem that can't be fixed. Let me rephrase that. I think it's a problem that can be fixed, but I think it's a problem that is never fixed in the right way and is never addressed in the right way in any games I've ever played. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to try and break it down. I'm going to use squads as an example. I might use the finals because I think it's also applicable there. When it comes to gameplay mechanics and figuring out what a game does and does not want you to do, it often comes down to what mechanics punish the player and what mechanics promote things to the player. So in squad, for example, you get punished for playing by yourself in a number of ways through mechanics built into the game. So if you're playing squad by yourself and you're trying to fight, let's say 3 enemies, and they're coming at you, you're going to them. If your stamina is low, and chances are it will be, you've probably just come out of a sprint because you're playing by yourself. If your stamina is low, your weapon sway is already really high. When you pull your scope up, you can't immediately start shooting people. You have to wait a few seconds to dial in your scope. So already you're at a disadvantage because there are 3 people coming towards you and you're waiting for your scope to line up, right? Secondly, there's a thing called suppression in the game. It's pretty severe. If the enemy starts shooting at you, you're going to have a really hard time to return accurate fire. It's a huge mechanic in the game now. It means that if you're playing by yourself and you're trying to kill 3 people, if 2 of them are suppressing you while the other guy is going for the kill shot, you're not going to be able to kill all 3 of those people. You're going to be so suppressed. Your weapon's going to be going all over the place. You're not going to be able to see anything. Like these mechanics, and there's also barrel misalignment. So even if you are firing and you're firing back and you're trying to make accurate shots, your barrel is going like this, making it very difficult to land multiple accurate shots while being fired upon when you're playing by yourself. These mechanics all heavily punish you for playing by yourself. Heavily punish you for playing by yourself, okay? Here's the problem. This is what I call the stick. When it comes to promoting certain gameplay experiences or punishing certain experiences or certain choices, there's the carrot and there's the stick. The stick is the thing that comes out to tell you what you're doing is wrong and we're going to punish you for it. So you play by yourself, guess what? You come up against 2 enemy players, you lose that gunfight 99 times out of 100. That's the stick. It's coming in to punish you because of suppression, because of barrel misalignment, because of stamina systems. The stick's coming in and it's beating you down. It's just beating you to death, that stick, right? So and the punishment is death, right? So you play by yourself, guess what? You die a lot. And also when you play by yourself and you die a lot, guess what? You don't get revived a lot. More punishment. Even if you get revived, your stamina is actually reduced and does not ever go back to a full bar, at least for a certain amount of time, unless you get healed back to full health by a medic. More punishment for playing by yourself. So much stick, okay? So if you're not playing with a team, you're getting beaten with a stick, okay? There's no carrot. There is no carrot. There's only stick. And I think it's a problem. I feel like when you're playing a team-oriented game, and this goes for a lot of team-oriented games, the finals, I think, is another good example of this. If you've ever played the finals, if you play the game with like 2 other teammates, it's amazing. Like there's so much teamwork, communication, you really get to feel the full breadth of the game. But when you play the game by yourself, it's hell on earth. It's hell. It's almost unplayable in my opinion. It's very unfun. The team play is severely lacking, and the gameplay experience is drastically worse because the team play is missing. Same in squad. When the team play is missing, the gameplay is drastically worse. And the devs have tried to incentivize team play by beating people with a stick if they do not work together as a team. And ultimately, as you've seen with the ICO as it currently is, that this experiment, to an extent, I think, has failed in terms of teamwork and getting people to work together. I think the experiment has failed. People fundamentally, I think, don't really want to go the extra mile and work together and work really closely and submit, and this is what it is, submit to the punishing gameplay mechanics. People don't want to do it because I'm guilty of this as well. You'll be like, yeah, I could work with the team and I could make a squad and pull everyone together, but that's a lot of work and it's really hard. And so what I'm going to do instead is I think I'm a good player. So I think that I can beat the mechanics, right? It's going to be hard. It's going to be harder to play the game fighting against the gameplay mechanics, but I can do it because I'm the best, right? And I think a lot of people have that similar thing. They go, okay, it's going to be harder to run around by myself shooting people without communicating or working with the team or pulling some kind of flank or working together where someone suppresses while I take better shots, or some kind of bounding maneuver or whatever, using smoke before making moves and flanking, and I don't want to do any of that stuff. I'm going to run around by myself, even though it's going to be harder, because I'm better and I can beat these mechanics. I think that is the general mentality of a lot of people, subconsciously or consciously, I don't know. Because there's no carrot. There's no carrot, okay? Here's what I think a team-oriented game, this is what I think all team-oriented games need, and they seem to severely lack it, especially more competitive style multiplayer games that require teamwork. There's a lot of stick, there's not much carrot. Here's an idea for some carrot. And this is kind of loosely robbed from Battlefield, but I think you could do a much better job than they did. In Battlefield 3 and maybe 4, they had perks, squad-based perks. That were really basic. They're like, take this perk and you run 5% faster or something, which is really basic. I think in squad especially, there should be squad-based team mechanics that promote teamwork. They don't punish you for not working as a team. They reward you for working together. So simple things like, let's say you're standing within 5 of your teammates, and you can replace the numbers here. I'm just for an example. Let's say you're standing within 100 meters of 5 other squad mates. All of those squad mates would get, let's say, a reduction in suppression effects, right? So if you're then in a gunfight and there are 6 of you there, all of you are going to be less suppressed when that gunfight's going on. Maybe you could have the same thing, but there's 6 of you, 100 meters, your stamina regens 20% faster, or your stamina goes down 20% slower, or both. You know, things that promote teamwork by saying, hey, you're working really well as a team. Here's some benefits, you know, not just saying, hey, you should work well as a team, because if you don't, it's going to be hell. You're going to die all the time and you're going to hate your life. Less stick, more carrot, right? And then you're more incentivized as a player not to be, you know, if it's not about you fighting the mechanics because you're better than the game. It's about you going out there and going, hey, if we work together, the game's going to be more fun. It's going to be easier. I'm going to have these benefits that I wouldn't otherwise be getting, which will make me better at the game and will make me feel more like a super soldier because I have these team benefits because I'm working with the team, which I think is a much better way of doing it. You could have stuff like team points based kind of unlocks, I think, within a squad could be really interesting. You could have a thing where as you get more teamwork points, and those could be, I think the squad has kind of teamwork points, but I think it could be more clear cut about how you get them. And as your squad gets more teamwork points collectively, your squad then gets access to certain gadgets or certain weapons throughout a game, certain abilities that you wouldn't otherwise have if you weren't building up those teamwork points. So, for example, I think a big problem in squad right now is that not enough people build habs. I think if squads were incentivized to build habs, because if you built the hab, you would generate teamwork points, which would then, within your squad, unlock the ability to, say, play a certain class that is only accessible to a squad with 10,000 teamwork points or more. Right? And then the solo player is incentivized to play with the team because they get access to cool toys they wouldn't otherwise get access to if they weren't playing as a team. Again, the carrot, some incentives, some incentives to play as part of the team instead of just being beaten into the dirt if you don't play as part of the team. You know, like I could see a world where there's some kind of weapon customization built into the game, but the customization only unlocks as you progress your teamwork points within a round, and then you're also building things as you play around, like within a game. So you're building out your character. You're getting your squad is getting access to more equipment, more weapons. Maybe there's some kind of like assets you can call in as a squad leader if you have a certain amount of teamwork points, like in Battlefield 5. Just some more incentives to work as a team instead of just being beaten by the stick for not working as a team. I genuinely think that it could be a real game changer for squad. It could be a game changer for the finals. It could be a game changer for most team-oriented games, where instead of you sitting there hating your teammates for being bad, you might start incentivizing your teammates to work together so that you can all have more fun and unlock cool gadgets and do cool things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do if it wasn't for the extra teamwork incentives. So that's my 2 cents. That is my 2 cents on teamwork. As always, I'm curious to see what anyone else has to say. As always, I don't think I've seen anyone ever talk about things like this. I get that for a game like Squad, it's a bit gamey. It's kind of gamifying a realistic game. But I think Squad's in a beautiful spot where it hits that middle ground between game and realism. And it could be a perfect example to add in this multi-layered stuff that would both incentivize teamwork and make for a much more replayable experience and a much more unique experience. And who doesn't want a unique replayable experience? It's the dream. And then think of all the skins you could sell for all the stuff you could unlock with teamwork points. You could get teamwork skins. Could you imagine? You could have a squad where as you develop your squad, you develop like a squad banner or something. And then there's someone with a banner. I don't know. I'm getting lost in the sauce. Am I cooking? You let me know. But I think it's all very interesting stuff. Teamwork is a big part, a thing that I've always been interested in games. I think it allows for much broader, much more interesting gameplay experiences. You just need the game to actually have people who work as a team. And what better way to do that than by incentivizing them with cool unlocks? Thank you for watching. That was another episode of Slorg Pinions in the Books, a long one. Holy smokes. Anyway, yeah, until next time, like and subscribe whenever people tell you to do, and I will see you in the next one.